Welcome everybody to another episode of Top to Bottom. Today we're going to be reviewing the new Fleet Foxes album, Shore. Fleet Foxes is a band that I started listening to after I discovered their 2011 album, Helplessness Blues. An absolutely amazing album, one of the most beautiful albums I've ever listened to, and when I saw that they released this new album named Shore, I figured, let's review it for a video. I do want to state though that the only reference point I have with Fleet Foxes music is Helplessness Blues. I have not listened to their first album, which I believe was their self-titled album, and I have not listened to the album that came before this one. So do keep that in mind that I don't have much of a reference point. As I said, I only have Helplessness Blues to go off of. I just wanted to put it out there that that is the only context that I have. I haven't uploaded an episode of Top to Bottom in quite a while, so for anybody who's returning who may have forgotten, or for anybody who's new to this series, what I do here is I take an album and I put in order, in my own personal opinion, my least favorite track to my favorite track on the album, giving you guys a little bit of a rundown on each track and what I either liked or disliked about it, and then towards the end of the review, I will give you guys a score and my overall thoughts of the album. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. There are 15 songs on this album, and at the number 15 spot, we have Young Man's Game. This track starts off pretty strongly with some prominent strings plucking away, followed by the full instrumental making its entrance. The overall instrumental is tolerable, but this is a rare moment on the album where I really dislike Robin's singing. The notes that he hits on almost every single line on this song comes off extremely annoying to me. The most annoying part of this track to me is actually where he says the title of the song, Young Man's Game. I find it extremely irritating. This is easily my least favorite track on the album. It's far too repetitive sounding and gets old super quickly, even in its short 3-minute runtime. I guess if I had to put this song in one word, skip. In the number 14 spot, we have Thymia. This is a cut towards the end of the album, which is once again more reserved in tone. My biggest issue with this song is that at this point in the track list, it is a little redundant and has far too much deja vu behind it. And don't get me wrong, it is a sweet moment on the album, but at this point in the album, as I said, I've had enough of these. The singing is good and the light guitar notes sound very pretty, but in the end, it just isn't something that really keeps my attention all that much. In the number 13 spot, we have Jara. The production at the beginning here is very strange. It almost sounds like some weird sampling that you would hear off of The Way Out by the Books. Here, there is quite a bit of simplicity in the instrumentation. It's okay, but definitely not as exciting as other cuts on this album, and definitely not as exciting as other cuts on albums like Helplessness Blues. There's nothing specifically bad that stands out about this track, but what I find to be the problem is that there's also nothing that stands out as overly good. It comes off a lot more generic and derivative than other tracks on this album, and it is one of the most flavorless cuts I've heard on the entire thing. In the number 12 spot, we have Quiet Air / Joya. The guitar, drum, and bass line combination on this track sounds really cool. It comes off a lot more funky than previous cuts. Of course, Robin's voice is still a selling point here. It's just really angelic. At the end, it's more subtle in delivery and places the track to rest very nicely after its powerful performance. The only critique I have is that at this point in the track list, it does sort of come off again like more of the same. In the number 11 spot, we have A Long Way Past the Past. On this song, Robin seems to be talking about his anxiety and stress over his past. He seems to be trying to accept it and move forward and realize that there is no way to change what's already been done. I like his singing and the overall sound of this song, but similarly to Jara, it's just not as exciting to me as some of the drumming and guitar playing is a lot more basic and too simple for its own good. In the number 10 spot, we have Going to the Sun Road. I love the horns that kick this track off, building up to Robin's introduction as the full instrumental explodes to the forefront. Robin's vocals at the end of the choruses are very nice too. I like how far he extends his voice in those moments. However, nothing really stands out on this track. A lot of the good qualities that are present here are very similar to others on the track list, although I will say that the guitar playing at the end of the song is quite a big highlight for me. In the number 9 spot, we have Cradling Mother, Cradling Woman. This song samples a vocal demo of Brian Wilson, which Robin was extremely grateful for. He claims that the sample changed and guided his life more than any other piece of music. The instrumentation on this song is great. I love how the combination of of drums, violin, viola, and horn sound. Robin's vocals are lovely on this song and just adds as another solid moment on the album. In the number 8 spot, I have Maestranza. This is another instrumentally simple track for Fleet Foxes. The chorus stands out to me. The vocal passages Robin goes into sound really good. I love the bridge on this one. I like how the drums sync up with Robin's voice, and I especially love the guitar chords at the 220 mark. At the number 7 spot, we have the intro song, Wading in Waist-High Water. This is a great opener to the album. Very pretty and gentle guitar notes to introduce us to the atmosphere that's going to be present. Instead of lead vocalist Robin Pecknold appearing here, we get singing from Uwaid Akhir, I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, who sings in almost a whispered fashion, very delicately over the instrumental. Once we reach the second verse, the instrumental climaxes with some massive drums and horns that sound no less than fantastic. Afterwards, the song goes back into a more peaceful tone, slowly fading into the next track. The singing and instrumentation on this opening song was masterfully crafted and is a wonderful tone setter. In the number 6 spot, we have the final track on this album, Shore. This is absolutely a fitting closer, definitely one of, if not the most peaceful moment on the album. I love the emotional piano playing and Robin's quiet vocals. It really feels like we've come a long way and that this album is finally being put to rest gently. This is definitely one of the saddest moments here as well, because generally speaking, this album was very uplifting, but this is absolutely one of the saddest cuts here. The controlled slow tempo as well as the lyrics really make this a heart-gripping moment. I don't love the vocals towards the end of the track, but I do love the instrumentation, which sort of swallows Robin's voice and builds a very robust feel. This is an excellent closer to the album and is pretty much what I wanted as an ending. In the number 5 spot, we have Sunblind. We open this track with Pecknold dedicating this song to various artists who have passed away. He was inspired to write this song when his grandfather had a stroke, essentially to continue the theme of keeping people alive in memory, which was a topic he was already writing about on this very album. As usual, the instrument playing here sounds great, but the drums stand out to me the most on the pre-chorus and the chorus itself. They just sound so heavy and clear. The guitars harmonizing on the chorus with the singing is also very nice. To speak on the singing, it is of course fantastic. The contrast between the quieter moments on the refrain and the gigantic feel of Robin's voice for the rest of the song is just excellent. In the number 4 spot, we have I'm Not My Season. To me, this is a quiet, less is more moment on the album. We get some calm singing with some faint guitars hanging in the background, helping to put Robin's voice at the front for everyone to hear. The chorus tugs on my heartstrings with just how beautiful it is sang. There's not much to say here. It's just another incredibly delicate section that I love. At the number 3 spot, we have For a Week or Two. This is one of the most stripped down moments on the whole album. I like the slower tempo and direction this song takes, and while I didn't love the track that came before it, it's definitely a fitting follow-up considering the theme that it's trying to follow. Robin's singing is a lot more depressing, and the piano that syncs up with his voice throughout the track makes for a very pretty moment. The birds chirping at the end also add a real zen-like feel to the song as it peacefully comes to a close. In conclusion, it's a nice cool down point on the album, and once again is, in my opinion, a less is more moment, not just in its composition, but also in its length, as I'm very happy that this track didn't go on for any longer than it needed to. At the number 2 spot, we have Featherweight. In my opinion, much better than the song that came before it, Jara. One of the more somber points on this album with a more saddening vibe coming through in the instrumental, as well as Robin's singing is a lot more relaxed. I love how Robin's voice is masterfully controlled on the verses and especially the chorus. The piano during the chorus is a very nice touch too. Ultimately, it is a beautiful track and a big highlight on the track list for me. And finally, at the number 1 spot, my favorite song in the album, Can I Believe You. Uwaid once again appears on this track, but in the background for some choir-like vocals. This track is just perfect. It feels larger than life and is just absolutely blissful. Definitely my favorite instrumentation and singing on the whole album. The drums are so punchy and the guitar stands out so boldly. Robin's singing is just magnificent. His range is really put on display here. His vocals when he says, "Now I'm learning the ropes" at the 116 mark are, as I said, larger than life and feel like a spiritual awakening. That same pitch that he keeps for other parts of the track, to me, is the most standout moment on the album. I seriously just cannot get enough of it. Another huge highlight for me comes at the 130 mark. I just love the drumming and the guitar passages at that moment specifically. It just added a lot of color to the song, even though it's so brief and only appears 3 times throughout. The breather we get towards the end of the track, where the vocals and instrumentation quieten a little, is a good lead up to the chorus, which rounds out the whole song for one last amazing climactic moment. What else can I say about this track? It is just stellar. Definitely a soul-freeing moment. So yeah, that is my top to bottom list of Shore by Fleet Foxes. As you can tell, I like this album. While yes, there were moments on this album that were underwhelming in terms of its sonic variety, as on this album I don't feel like there is much in terms of instrumentation. Don't get me wrong, the instrumentation on this album, for the most part, I would say, is very good. It's just at certain moments I do wish they sort of changed it up a little bit. However, in terms of songs that I just straight up disliked, I can only really say that Young Man's Game lands on that list. A few of the songs that came after that on the list were songs that I was either indifferent to or only liked a little bit. But as I said, there weren't many moments that to me just flat out came as I just don't like this. I guess you could summarize my feelings about this album in the fact that it's 54 minutes. I feel like it's just a little bit too long for its own good. I do feel like some of the songs maybe could have been cut out or maybe reduced a little bit, just to trim off a little bit of the fat. But without a doubt, I definitely got way more great moments on this album than I got bad moments. The bad moments on this album are definitely forgivable, and the amazing moments on this album are just incredible. So while I wouldn't go as far as to say that I loved this album, I'm not going to say that it's mind-blowing or anything, especially for Fleet Foxes. I know they can do much better than this. This is in no way me communicating to you that this is a bad album. I feel like the title Shore is very fitting considering the sound that this album just embodies, and it's definitely a solid release and is worth your time. In the end, I like this album. I didn't love it, I just didn't think it was all that mind-blowing, but it was an enjoyable listen. So with all that being said, in terms of scoring this album, I will give it a nice 7 out of 10. If you're a Fleet Foxes fan, you're probably going to really enjoy this album. This album has gotten some pretty good reception so far, I've seen. And if you like this album a lot more than I do, then I'm very, very happy for you. I enjoyed it quite a bit as well, and those have been all my thoughts on it. So that has been Shore by Fleet Foxes, top to bottom, finished. I'm gonna wrap this video up here. So yeah guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you smack the like button. If you want to stay up to date with my content, please be sure to subscribe. I'll have my last video in the corner. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely make sure to check it out. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.